Cycling has changed from the early days when cyclists had virtually traffic-free roads. Even in the mid-70s, our children could meet up with their friends and cycle across Manchester without any problems. But now, this is what cyclists have to contend with. Is it small wonder that many take to the pavements? My wife and I have now cycled in over 14 countries, and here are a few samples of what we have met on our way. One of the nearest countries to visit is the Netherlands, and here we are with friends having just got off the ferry at Rotterdam. There is a cycle track alongside the main road that leads you out into more quiet areas. It is true the Dutch have always loved their bikes, but it wasn't until the 1970s that their government recognised that they had to cater for cyclists in a more positive way, and now you can cycle practically anywhere without fear and often along picturesque routes. While watching these pictures, keep an eye out for the Dutch cyclists, none of whom, apart from racing cyclists, consider it necessary to wear a helmet. Why do you think that is? Whilst making this presentation we had some snow, so here are some examples of how the Dutch cater for the snow. Note the snowplough is on the cycle path. Summertime again, and in France. We cycled alongside a river that could be our Mersey. What better way to get to a cafe for coffee? And on another track created from a disused railway line, we came across this Traveller's Rest, complete with water supply and toilet. Still in France, and the Annecy to Faverges cycle trail is similar to our Middlewood Way, an old railway line between two towns. But that is where the similarity ends. Attractive signboards denote who can use the route, and wide barriers slow track users down where it crosses a busy road. Otherwise, when it crosses a minor road, the traffic on the road has to stop for the track users, and they do. During the week it is mainly a commuter route, but at weekends cyclists, rollerbladers and walkers, as well as those out with prams and pushchairs, all get along amicably together. Unfortunately, in this country, catering for cyclists is not taken seriously. This is what Manchester Airport boasts of being their superb orbital cycleway. And even though in places the cycle track is clear, the adjacent footpath is blocked due to shrubs having been planted too close to the track. Here brambles have been left growing at head height, ready to take anyone's eyes out. 5 years of complaining only produced a minimal result when our MP, Andrew Stunnell, took up the case. Why should he have to use his time on a simple matter like this? Shrubbery is allowed to practically close off the track, and elsewhere the track is either waterlogged, or as here, becomes so narrow that 2 people cannot pass without one person getting off the track. Highways engineers often cater for cyclists in this manner. Quite obviously, officialdom frequently totally ignores the needs of cyclists, which is why many cyclists now ignore the law for their own safety and convenience, or take to riding off-road altogether. I am sure many cyclists now riding off-road would not do so if facilities were provided for them to get around the countryside safely. But why should we cater for these cyclists? Well, in Stockport we have a major cycle route coming right through the centre of town. The Transpennine Trail is part of a European scheme to have a cyclist and walker-friendly route between Dublin and Istanbul. So you can see how important it is, and much of it is already there, though in Britain it is far below continental standards. We also have the opportunity of creating an offshoot from Stockport to Macclesfield, with the Connect 2 and the Millwood Way, that will provide access into the Peak District and the Potteries. To many of you this may seem like Fantasyland, and why should we do it? Well, let us take one small section. The route from Regensburg in Germany to Vienna in Austria. This is known as the Danube route, and thousands of people use it every year. When we were there, we saw a party of about 30 Japanese tourists on their way down. The route crosses the Danube quite frequently in the gorge area, where ferry boats are provided. I was amused to think there are probably 30 photos of my wife and I with our tandem in Japan, as when we had passed them earlier, practically every one of them took our photo. Tandems are banned in Japan. Here are some statistics I have gleaned off the web. This first instance is from a submission to create a similar route in Australia. You will note the sea-to-sea route is mentioned in the survey. The sea-to-sea route runs from the Cumbrian coast to the Northumbrian coast, and is already attracting many visitors from overseas. Sustrand says that in the northeast the route users spend about £10 million a year, creating 216 jobs, and that with spin-offs this is worth over $13 million to the northeast. In Quebec, $134 million are spent by cycle tourists on La Route Verte, and in Ohio, $3.7 million are spent on the Little Miami Trail. With manufacturing now almost non-existent in this country, tourism must be one way of earning an income, and Stockport should be looking to take advantage of this. In Vancouver, there are no less than 4 shops providing cycle and skate hire for visitors to enjoy travelling the 7 miles around Stanley Park. A one-way 7-mile cycle track goes around the park.
Hi.
There is a continual procession of people travelling round, some taking it more seriously than others. One of Cycle Stockport's members has devised the Halls route, a 17-mile circular walking and cycling route that passes several of Stockport's attractive black and white buildings. Although this was recognised by Stockport Council several years ago, and that it provides useful links between areas and potential safe routes to schools, little progress has been made into making it a reality. It has been noticed that tourists using the Transpennine Trail often get lost in Stockport. Whilst the council is in the process of improving the signposting, they are far from recognising the benefits to the area of a well-designed tourist route. I live near Marple, where the Middlewood Way ends. For years I have been trying to persuade Stockport Council to provide signposting to encourage Middlewood Way users to make use of Marple and the surrounding attractions. I suggested the council should involve local people and the Cheadle and Marple College students to create interesting and informative signboards. Here is the council's result. There has been no attempt to involve knowledgeable people of the area, but has probably been done by the Office Junior. Although Ethrow Country Park and Chadgurk are labelled, there is nothing there to encourage people to visit these places. The council's usual response to providing notice boards is that there is no money available, and no doubt they will use this excuse even more now. Yet they must have spent thousands on quite useless corporate signboards. How many cafes, etc. in Marple would benefit if Middlewood Way users from elsewhere knew that Marple was just up the road from Rose Hill? Wouldn't it be wonderful if Transpennine Trail users decided to spend a few days in the area instead of struggling to find a way out? This is what we should be aiming for. There are well signposted cycle routes all over the place, and we used many of these to visit the attractive towns in the area. The first thing that strikes you is that the towns are designed for people and not for cars. It creates a delightful, relaxing atmosphere, and we don't need much encouragement to get off the bikes for a while and to just potter around. Bikes aren't the only form of transport used in the Netherlands. Possibly mainly intended for tourists, the scooters provide an easy way of exploring the area. If we are going to bring Stockport into the 20th century and cater for its residents and businesses, then it is up to us to combine our efforts to persuade Stockport Council to cater for the benefit of all.